Hey, okay, so I wanted to show you this new process, a couple of new things that we're going to be doing for the messages when we edit. So I wanted to show you really quick so we can all be on the same page, just in case, so you don't run into any weird questions, or not weird questions, but weird things, and you don't have any questions or anything like that. So I have new lower thirds and yeah, just a couple of different processes that I want to show you for the way that we're going to be editing the messages from here on out. Okay, so you should have gotten the messages, not the messages, but you should have gotten the lower thirds in Dropbox. So here they are. So this is the scripture lower third, and this is the lower third for the speaker, the title, the name and title of whoever is speaking. So in Premiere, and and so I'm going to start from the very beginning actually. So the first thing that we're going to be doing differently is we're going to be creating a sequence. Okay, so instead of taking the message, I have an example message here from last week. Instead of taking the message and dragging it into here and creating its own sequence, we're going to actually create our own, because we shoot the messages in 60 frames, but I want to actually export it out in 30 frames. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to come up here, not up there, we're going to come to File, New Sequence. We're going to choose that, and then we're going to come all the way down here, so this one right here, to XDCAM EX. You're going to toggle that down, and then you're going to toggle down 1080p, and then you're going to choose 1080p at 30 frames, okay? And when you drag that in, you're not going to receive this message, okay, because it will match the sequence. This is just an example message that I downloaded from Vimeo really fast. It's a poor quality message. Not poor quality message, but it's poor quality because I wanted to download it fast. So for that, I'm just going to scale it up. No, not that much. Scale it up right there so we can see it. Okay, so let's say that this is the message that you're doing, okay? So, I started, let's see. Okay, there it is.
Has been real.
There it is. Okay, so I started to try this last week with just different lower thirds. I was looking at different things, and I had this, and it was okay, but it still didn't really look great. So instead of having the lower third on the side, we're actually going to put it in the center. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So when you cut to the speaker, within the first few seconds, I want to see this lower third here, this smaller one, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it up, and I'm going to click that motion tab so I can move it around myself. So I scaled it up. We'll scale it to 200. That's good. Okay. Now I'm actually going to undock this and enlarge it so I can have a different perspective and see how big it actually is. Okay, so that's a little big. So I think I'm going to scale it at 150. We'll try that. Oops. Okay, yeah, 150 works. Alright. So with that, let me go back to the workspace. Okay, so for that first lower third, what we're going to do is we're going to center it. We're actually going to put it in the center. So not on the side, but in the center. So just like that, and we're going to scale it to 150 like that, like I did there. And then we're going to put the pastor's name, so whoever it is, whether it's Victor, PJ, whoever. So, Jimmy Pastor. Actually, we're just going to put their first and last name, so not pastor or anything, but just Jimmy Rollins. So Jimmy Rollins, Steve Harris, Larry Mack, and so on. Jimmy Rollins, lead pastor. Okay, so whatever their title is. The font that we're going to use for this, we're still going to be in Gotham, and then for the pastor's title, we are going to use the bold, so Gotham bold, and then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to center it, so everything is nice and centered. Okay, and I'm going to make that fit in there so it fits nicely. And I'm just going to center that up there, just like that. And actually, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to make this bold. I'm going to make this book. Okay, so Jimmy Rollins bold, lead pastor, book, all Gotham. Okay, then I'm going to bring that on top of there, and just like that. Okay, and then we're still going to do our normal dissolving it in, and
just you and him
dissolving it out after, after about 4 seconds. 4 seconds is a good time to leave up a lower third title for somebody's name and title. Gives them enough time to look at it. So we have that. Okay. So that is the second thing. So far, we made our own sequence by going to File, New Sequence, and then we changed the lower third positioning from the side to the center. Okay, now, scriptures. So, let's say, let me grab a scripture from this weekend. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna grab one of the longer ones, so you can actually, because those sometimes can be a little bit harder. Okay, so this is the process that I go through when I'm doing the scriptures. So let's say that he is saying a scripture, right? So I'm going to take this lower third here and drag it in, and I'm going to scale that one to 119. Okay, that's going to be what I scale it up to. Now, when I'm editing this, when I edited this, not this message, but when I edited the message today, I was using my desktop, so I had a larger screen to look at. I had this window expanded out, so it was a little bit bigger. So even though it looks small, it's actually not. So I'm going to move this up, and we're also going to have this in the center, just like that. And we're going to keep the opacity at 100. We're not going to mess with the opacity or anything. We're simply just going to leave it as is. All we're doing is scaling it up to 119, so it's a little larger. And then I'm going to put my text on top of that. So as you see, I have my PowerPoint open here. I copied the text as usual, and I'm going to paste it onto this part. Okay, and for this we're also going to use Gotham, but we're going to use book. So we're not using bold anymore, we're using book. So Gotham book, and I'm going to shrink it down to about 36. So the size of the font, I want to use somewhere between 35 and 38. So in this case we'll do 36. And I say between 35 and 38, it just kind of depends on how it fits into the box. If it looks like it's too busy, then we'll use something a little smaller. So what I'm doing here is, let me come back. So what I'm doing here is I'm going all the way to the end. This is another thing that I showed you. Okay. And I'm going all the way to the end, and I'm going to hit enter, and that's where I'll start making my line. So I'll go to the end, and I see that this is already kind of cutting off, so I'll cut it right here and hit enter, and I'll do the same right here, and there you go. Okay, and then I will take the scripture reference and I will copy that and then paste it down here, and I'll make sure that is centered. nicely centered. Okay. And there we have our scripture. And there it is. Cool. So this is what we're going to be using. I just wanted the background, like the lower third, to kind of look more like us. So I actually took, these are photos. These are, our photos. Probably your photos, actually. Yeah, these are our photos. So this is us, the background and everything, and it's a neutral color. It's still gray, so it'll match, kind of any color lighting that we have on stage. So that's why I chose that. Okay, so now let me turn this down a little bit. Now let's say, now for when he has another scripture, the easiest way to do it, instead of having to drag it in each time and scaling it up to 119, I would come down here to your lower third, so your lower third's at the bottom, right? I would come down and just copy that and then paste it to wherever your next scripture is going to be. So if say it's going to be down here, I will paste it and make sure that my V2, V1, V2 is highlighted. So make sure my track 2 is highlighted, and I'll paste that up here. Okay. And then after I copy and paste the lower third, just so I have the same settings, I don't have to worry about resetting it, then I'll come back and copy the scripture again and repeat what I just did. Okay. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to show you as well is, let's say that he has a life app, all right? So, or a point, either a life app or a point. So let's just say we have a point here, okay? So these are one of the points. So I'm going to go to my title page again. I'm going to paste that point, and I'm going to do this, okay, just so the 2 is next to it. I'm going to change my font and everything the way it should be. Okay. And I'm going to center that. And down here, since it's not a scripture, I don't want to leave an empty space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write just our handle, our social media handle at I5 Church. Okay. Just for people, if they want to tweet at it or Instagram it or something, just at I5 Church. Okay. And the other option you can do, and this is what I did today, is I kind of changed it up every few points, is I either wrote I5 Church or I wrote the pastor's social media handle. So you could either write I5 Church or at JRoll TV or at Victor Himare and so on. Okay. So I would kind of go back and forth maybe every couple of points or life apps. Well, if it's a life app, then you'll put life app. So say this is a life app here, I would put life app in all caps. So it should really be life app. So say that was a life app, then obviously I should put life app down here. But if he has just a point, just to not leave a blank space, we want to either put the at I5 Church handle or the pastor's social media handle. Okay, so that is that. So, new sequences, new lower thirds, okay, centered, Gotham book, centered, 100% opacity, all right, and let's skip to the end here. All right, so say we're at the end, okay, and I know you've asked me a couple times about the volume, so I'll just give you a quick reminder. So remember to fade out the volume. You want to come to your effect controls, and you want to come down here, and you want to click that little stopwatch, and then as you move forward, you want to turn the volume down. So you could actually play it, and then turn it down just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little bit, until it's all the way down. You could do it like that, and then you have your keyframes there. So that's how you make your keyframes, okay? And also something to watch out for, which is something that I had to do today, is if the speaker, if their audio is say around 18 decibels, and then we come back to Pastor Jimmy's closing, um, his outro, his audio is going to be way higher, so you'll probably have to bring it down just a little bit so you can match whatever the speaker's volume is. So just make sure that the audio levels between the speaker and the host are the same. Okay? And another thing that we're going to be doing is we're actually going to render, okay, because it does make a difference in terms of the quality. So even though I have a yellow line here, I don't absolutely have to render, but I decided that, you might as well. And I think the new update for Premiere allows you to render faster. I noticed that my render went a lot faster today. It took about 15 minutes, which usually in the past it's taken up to an hour. So, so even though I have a yellow bar, I'm still going to render. So the keyframe. Yeah, it's the end of the day. I'm losing my words. The shortcut for render is Option R. Okay, so if I hit Option R, then this will come up and it'll tell you how long it has to render. And once it's done rendering, you'll see a nice green line, and then you'll be good to go. So that's Option R. Another way to render is if you go to Sequence and you hit, you can click Render Effects, or you click Render Into Out, just like that. So Effects, Render Into Out, or shortcut Option R. Okay. Now, last thing that we are changing is the export settings. The only thing that we're changing is instead of medium bitrate, we're going to export at a high bitrate. Okay, just again so we can keep the quality up. Actually, there's one more change. So high bitrate, so not medium bitrate anymore, but it's already set. Okay, so you really shouldn't have to do anything. I would use maximum render quality, and it should probably be a little over 3 gigs, okay, when you render it out. And then you can just click that export button, and it should probably take maybe an hour or so. So yeah, it will take a little longer, and it will be a bigger file, but ultimately the quality should be a little bit better. So just think about that in terms of when you manage your time when you're editing, because it's going to take longer to render, it's going to take longer to export, a little bit longer to render, and longer to upload. So just be mindful of that when you're editing these, especially because we still want to get it up that Wednesday morning. Okay, so I'm going to cancel that real quick. Actually, I'm going to go back to the export window. Okay, so if you come back to the export window, another thing that I'm going to need everyone to do is render out the audio only. Okay, so people can listen to it, like in their car or something. Maybe they don't want to, use the data or something for video or battery for their video. So we're also going to export the audio. That's really easy. All you have to do is uncheck export video, and then we're just going to render it out as an MP3. So if you come up here to format, click MP3, and then you can choose where you want to save it. All right, and then see, it's only 41 megabytes, and then you can export, and that's that. So those are that's a really big change. It's not that big, it's just really important to remember we are going to export audio. Okay, and then the audio can probably be placed in Dropbox, and then I can upload it to where it needs to be, because it's going to go on the app, and then eventually we are going to get back on iTunes with the podcast app. So yeah, those are the changes. Please let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully I wasn't too confusing. I know I kind of babbled a lot. It's the end of the day. It's time to go home. But yeah, those are the changes, and I will talk to you soon.